Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Acting Deputy President. Well, when working out how I could possibly summarise Marise Payne in just a few simple minutes, I thought I'd throw away my script and just speak from my heart. I've known Marise now for 33 years. I did count, I'm sorry, Marise, and I can't say we were 10 years old either at the time. But I first met Marise as a young Liberal. The West Australian delegates had hired a high ace and we'd driven across the Nullarbor. And we arrived in South Australia and I first met this amazing woman. I mean, I've been in the Army Reserves for a few years already, but I'd never quite met a young woman, a year older than me, than I had Marise. And Marise won't remember this, but I will never forget. And for me, as a young Conservative, as a young Liberal, as in Conservative as the broad church, just seeing this woman who was leading the young Liberals, and it just gave me my first example of what leadership could look like as a Liberal woman. In the military, I didn't have women at that time who we could look up to because they just simply weren't there. So I was greatly inspired by Marise, and through the years our paths continued to cross. And then I was Chief of Staff to Chris Ellison, the Minister for Justice and Customs, and Marise was making her way in her own inimitable way, still demonstrating all of those qualities that have been so eloquently mentioned here today. And again, as Chief of Staff, seeing Marise's passion for servicemen and women, and in our portfolio for men and women in blue, and just how she stood up in committees and in Parliament, and particularly during September 11 and all of the Bali bombings and everything else that we had to deal with. My admiration for Marise only grew. But it's only in later years, serving with Marise in the Senate as a colleague and also as a friend, that I've truly come to appreciate the legacy that she leaves this place, and I know she will take to wherever she goes next. And that is showing Liberal women that you can support other women, that it is okay to be a Conservative woman, and that we can lead as women. And as people have said here, every day that compassion, the commitment, not having to be obsessed by the press gallery and sometimes copping criticism for that. But that's okay because you were doing your job and you're doing it bloody well. And so for me, I learnt a great deal from you, becoming a minister and then becoming a cabinet minister. And at that time, whether we were on one of the many bilaterals and multilaterals we did as Foreign Minister and Defence Minister, I learnt such a great deal from you. The way that you engaged with your counterparts, the unfailing politeness to officials, and as you can see that in Marise's acknowledgements here today, you always did your homework. When you speak, everybody stops to listen. And I was very fortunate, so I was the second behind you in terms of being a female Defence Minister. And I also want to acknowledge the incredible work that you did first as Defence Minister and then as Foreign Minister. The white paper, getting the funding and restoring confidence of our men and women in uniform in this place and in the executive government in particular. So I came in behind and I inherited the great work that you did and was able to implement the Defence Strategic Update and the associated budgets and documents that went with that. But it fell for 2 years to you and I to travel the world and speak up for Australia, speak up for Australia's sovereignty, and to speak up for our regional neighbours who didn't and weren't able to speak up on their own at the time. So not only did I learn a great deal from you, I learnt about strength and courage and commitment, but again, in all of that, in policy development, on the big things and on the small things, And a number of people have acknowledged the work and the passion that you have for Afghanistan and their women. And I saw that firsthand. And I saw that in your leadership during the evacuation of 4,000 Afghans. And I'm glad Senator Farrell acknowledged that, because you and your office, and I know some are here today, did an extraordinary thing. You were basically running the operation out of your office 24/7 and taking calls from all of us, including myself, who had people we were desperate to get evacuated, and you had time for each and every one of us. And having now had 16 members of one family come out as a result of that, who are fine Australians, Khalid Amiri and his family. And that story is replicated probably by most of us here in this chamber. So not only did you have the passion and the commitment and the values for the big things that have changed our nation for the better, but you've never ever forgot each and every person. So in conclusion, there's a lot more I could say, but I think a lot of it has been said. But you have changed the course not only for women in the Liberal Party, but also for women in Australia, as Michaelia, I think, so wonderfully said. I will never forget every cabinet meeting when the board, the Commonwealth Board's gender balance was, everybody would look to Marise. Marise, we're closer to 50-50, and I'm sure it is one of Marise's proudest moments when we left government that she got, and we got through her, over 50% on Commonwealth Government Boards women, and that was your dogged determination for years, and your ability to scare the bejeebers out of so many of our cabinet colleagues. But just on a personal note, Marise, thank you for your friendship, for the unknowing leadership and guidance and support you've given so many. I'm just one of so many. And I know that so many women will walk in your shoes. Most of us probably won't be able to fill them, but nonetheless you've trailblazed for us all. And on a personal note, thank you for your support for me when I couldn't speak for myself. I'm here because of that, and I will always be grateful. So Godspeed to whatever is next, and I know it's going to be even bigger and better. We will miss you.
Senator